I want you to think about this for a second. Right now, you can stay awake all night if you want to. All you gotta do is leave the lights on. Pretty easy, right? But here's a very strange reality that we rarely ever consider. Your body has absolutely zero clue what a light bulb is. Biologically speaking, it's still running on rules that were written 300,000 years ago. And as we dig into the explainer today, you're gonna see how those ancient rules might just make our modern habits sound completely insane.
Which kind of brings us to this massive question that honestly almost nobody stops to ask. What did humans do with half their lives? Because for the vast majority of human history, that is exactly what night was. It wasn't just some brief, annoying gap between busy, productive days. It was literally half of your entire existence. Imagine a time before lamps, before candles, before glowing screens. We're talking about near total darkness. So what actually happened during all those hours? Setting up the mystery of that super frustrating 2 a.m. wake-up that so many of us experience today starts right here, in the pitch black. How fire built human culture, the circle that saved our species.
So, if you've ever jolted awake at 2 in the morning, stared at the ceiling, and angrily diagnosed yourself with insomnia, well, you were absolutely not alone. It's a completely frustrating modern experience. But I'm promising you a massive historical plot twist here that is going to fundamentally change how you view your own sleep. You might not actually be as broken as you think. To get why, we've got to rewind the clock, like roughly 1,000,000 years back. Before humans could control fire, we lived just like every other primate out on the savannah. The sun drops, and boom, you freeze. You climb a tree, you hide, and you stay perfectly still. Why? Because human eyes are practically useless in the dark. But the animals hunting us, the leopards, the hyenas, the wolves, yeah, they didn't have that problem. Moving around at night was essentially a death sentence. And that is exactly why 30 feet became the absolute most important measurement in human history. 30 feet, that's the rough size of the safety bubble created by a burning fire. Once we controlled fire, and the oldest solid proof of that dates back to Wonderwork Cave down in South Africa, it literally flipped the script on our survival. If you stayed inside that 30-foot illuminated circle, you were safe. Step outside that bubble at night, the odds turned against you instantly. In fact, modern hunter-gatherer research completely backs this up today. Folks who wander away from the fire at night are way more likely to fall prey to predators. So the really crucial point here isn't just about protection. Fire actually handed humans extra time. Think about it. Without fire, your day ends the exact second the sun goes down. In the winter, your quote-unquote day might only be 8 hours long. But fire stretched that day out by 2 to 4 extra hours every single night for thousands of generations. And that wasn't just some minor convenience. That fundamentally changed what it meant to be a human being. To put this into perspective, back in 2014, an anthropologist named Polly Weissner published this incredible study on the Zhuangzi people of the Kalahari Desert, who live a lot like our early ancestors did. She found that during the day, conversations were strictly logistical. You know, who's hunting, which plants are ripe, who owes what to who. Just business. But at night, around the fire, the whole vibe shifted entirely to myths, jokes, and storytelling. That firelight was basically our original classroom. It was the original stage where human culture, imagination, and society were literally built from the ground up. Okay, so we know what we did around the fire, but what happened when the fire finally died down? Well, get ready for a pretty shocking historical truth. Despite literally everything you've ever been taught about getting a good night's rest, humans were never built to sleep in one long, continuous 8-hour block. No way. Back in 2001, historian Roger Eckertz published the results of 16 solid years of exhaustive research. I mean, he dug through court records, old prayer books, medical texts, even translations of Homer's Odyssey. And everywhere he looked, across centuries, across cultures, he found the exact same standard: first and second sleep. People would go to bed near sunset, sleep for about 4 hours, naturally wake up for an hour or two, and then drift off into a second sleep for another 4 hours until morning. That was the universal, undisputed norm. So, what on earth did people actually do during that midnight waking window? Well, they used it purposefully. There was even a prominent physician in the 1500s who specifically advised couples to use this quiet stretch for conceiving children. Other folks would go visit their neighbors, sit around and analyze their fresh dreams, or just study and reflect. One old medical manual actually called it the absolute best time for the mind to be calm while the world is still. So, if you're waking up at midnight today, history is telling us you aren't feeling at sleep, you're just awake. For the longest time, historians actually brushed this off. They thought these old texts were just, mistranslations. But then, in 1992, a psychiatrist named Thomas Ware ran a fascinating study at the National Institute of Mental Health. He basically took a group of volunteers and plunged them into conditions mimicking the pre-light bulb world. We're talking 14 hours of daily darkness. And guess what happened? Within just a few weeks, with absolutely zero instruction whatsoever, every single participant reverted right back to that natural rhythm. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 2 hours of calm wakefulness, followed by 4 more hours of sleep. It was like their bodies just automatically remembered what to do. It's wild. And the blood work from this experiment, it revealed something absolutely astounding. During that middle of the night awake phase, these participants weren't tossing and turning in an anxious panic like we do today. Not at all. Their blood actually showed elevated levels of prolactin. Now, prolactin is the hormone linked to deep meditation and peaceful calm, so they were just hanging out in this deeply peaceful meditative state. It's essentially a completely different state of human consciousness that most of us alive today have literally never experienced.
Light bulbs erased the night, how we lost 300,000 years of programming. So how do we lose this amazing rhythm? Well, the answer is pretty simple and honestly kind of tragic for our biology. We lost it because we invented artificial light. For hundreds of thousands of years, the setting sun was the boss. It dictated our rhythm. But then, in the 1600s, King Louis XIV decides to introduce street lamps in Paris to cut down on crime. By the 1800s, gaslighting is spreading like wildfire through major cities. And finally, boom, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercializes the electric light bulb. In just a single generation, which is literally a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms, we completely wiped out the natural biological boundary between day and night. And before all that, that boundary of night was strictly enforced. Just think about the etymology of a word we use all the time today, curfew. It actually comes from the French phrase couvre-feu, which literally translates to cover the fire. Towns would ring a big bell to signal it was time to smother your flames because the darkness was supposed to return. Night was strictly for sleeping. In medieval cities, walking outside after dark without a lantern wasn't just frowned upon, it was actually straight up illegal. And this brings us right back to your modern bedroom. Because while society completely transformed practically overnight, our ancient biological wiring, it definitely did not. Today, the average person absorbs something like 7 to 8 hours of artificial light exposure after the sun goes down, and it is wreaking absolute havoc on our brains. Your ancient brain literally cannot tell the difference between the blue light radiating off your smartphone and the midday sun. So when that light hits your eyes at 11 p.m. while you're scrolling in bed, your brain is like, oh, it's daytime. This directly blocks and delays your production of melatonin, the hormone that tells your body it's time to sleep. Millions of years of carefully calibrated sleep rhythms just completely scrambled by that little glowing rectangle. But hey, there is some incredibly good news here. 2 hours. That is how much human melatonin cycles will shift back after just one single week of camping with zero artificial light. When researchers took people out of their artificially lit modern lives and put them in nature, their bodies almost immediately started producing sleep hormones at sunset again. This absolutely proves that our ancient 300,000-year-old biological wiring isn't gone at all. It's just sitting right there beneath the surface, waiting for the dark. When you really think about it, we deleted a perfectly natural state of consciousness and we replaced it with a diagnosis. We took that incredibly peaceful, deeply reflective window between our first and second sleep, we destroyed it with light bulbs, and now we just call it insomnia. We treat it like there's something profoundly broken within us. But maybe, actually, scratch that, almost certainly, we aren't broken at all. We're just missing the fire, the stories, and the silence of our natural biology. Which leaves us with this final, really profound question to think about today. What if your 2 a.m. wake-up is just your oldest instincts trying to do their job? Seriously, the next time you find your eyes opening in the middle of the night, instead of panicking, instead grabbing your phone and flooding your eyes with that artificial blue light, maybe just try lying there in the dark. Embrace that calm. Your body remembers exactly what to do, even if the modern world forgot. I really hope this helps you find a little more peace in the vanished night.